the person who knows, the person who practices, we don't necessarily feel their purity. We feel a lot of ego, and that's one of the challenges we have. So Rabbi Nachman talks extensively about this Torah scholar that has he calls it the shade, Yehudi. It's a Jewish demon. Listen, if you're going to have your cell phone on, just make sure you can get to it quickly so that you can... For everybody else, that's a lesson. Thank you. So you can put it on vibrate.
It was all the people on Friday except for
I'm not judging you. I'm just telling everybody else. This always happens. I wait for the first person's cell phone to ring so I can remind everyone. Because you know what it is? It's better to have an example. So, okay, thank you. So this idea of the rabbinic person who has this trait of ego that affects their understanding of the Torah. If you're interested in it, to look at it in depth, it's in Likutei Moharan. Mostly I'm going to be teaching from Likutei Moharan, which is the magnum opus. It's the classical work of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. It's his most important work, and one of the most important works of Hasidus in general, Kabbalah as well, is Likutei Moharan. So in his Torah 12, what he's doing is first he traces back the relationship with the original authority. He calls him the Tana. The Tana is the Talmudic authority. The Tana is one of the rabbis who were part of the period of what we call Mishnayos, about 1,800 years ago, and even further back. And then the Lamdan is the Torah scholar. And the Lamdan that is caught up in his own sophistication, because to Rabbi Nachman, the idea of the ego becoming overly involved in one's spiritual pursuit is of utmost importance. And specifically, the idea that we need to try to discern eventually the effects of the ego and how they may skew our relationship with each other and with God. So the Torah scholar, the Lamdan as he calls it, who takes a teaching of the earlier Tana, the Talmudic period rabbi, and uses it for self-aggrandizement. There's this concept, it's a Talmudic concept, that a rabbi should not make the Torah a axe to grind, so to speak, a way of ruling over people, a way of promoting their own agenda, of enriching themselves, of feeling better than and controlling other people. So what Rabbi Nachman is doing is he's just updating this concept. By the way, Rabbi Nachman was in part persecuted for these teachings because people understood that he was actually referring to specific people that he did not see eye to eye with other rabbis. So that's another chapter, so to speak, that I don't really want to deal with Rabbi Nachman's antagonistic outlook towards specific rebbes and rabbis. but more just this idea that but Rabbi Nachman actually claims in Torah Yud Beis, in this number 12, that the tzaddik who interacts with the lamdim, the truly righteous person who interacts with this religious person. Like I said, a lot of people who interact with this religious learned figure start feeling not only inadequate, but they start becoming angry at the religion. They start saying, if this person represents Torah, then I don't like Torah. And Rabbi Nachman says actually the tikkun, the fixing of this person who's possessed by this kind of devilish motivation is to hear your embarrassment, is to receive the kind of Torah of this person, this imperfect Torah, and to elevate it by first and foremost not fighting this person in a way that shows that you disrespect them and that you don't value them as a person, but rather just by being present and taking what they give you and bringing it back to the source. There's this concept of when there's something wrong, we process it, we hear that there's a message in it, we get the message, and we become better people. This is a consistent idea. So again, I'm going to now kind of distill this thought as it relates to beyond just dealing with a difficult Torah personality. Difficult people present us with opportunities for self-reflection that can allow us to perfect ourselves and be aware of our own ego in a way that we would not have had that opportunity and that insight had we not gone through that difficult encounter. Okay? That's the synopsis of it. But specifically, what do you do when you feel you're being oppressed? When you feel somebody has it in for you? So the first thing is this idea of like, you don't have to fight back, but Rabbi Nachman says there is only one way to overcome it. It's through joy. That's the only way to really be able to break out, is through joy. In Rabbi Nachman's Torah, this is maybe perhaps the most significant Torah that I'm going to give over today. In 115, again of Likutei Moharan, he continues this idea. This is a very critical idea. And just to make it become more relevant, easier to relate to, let's be very specific and talk about what do you do when you think that your life is too difficult, that there are too many things or one thing that is just too challenging, and you say, oh yeah, this is terrible. You feel bad. You don't want to get up. You can't face your day. You can't get on with it. It just is there. It's a dark, heavy thing. I don't want to say what it is. You could imagine whatever it is. It could be a financial hole that you just don't know how to get out of. It could be a relationship that is spiraling out of control. There's many things it could be, but it's something that creates beyond the actual loss of economic stability or love or whatever it is, there's that gloom that settles in, that darkness that can like hold on to you, that makes it much harder to like fix whatever it is that is the problem. Now, one way is saying, okay, that's part of life. There's things that happen that are good, there are things that happen that are bad. Perhaps next week or next month or next year you'll have a better year. And just, you'll deal with it. You'll be sad for a year. And certainly, that may be. Certainly time, the economic forecast for your future can change, and so on and so forth. But what do you do about that month or that year? And what about the fact that there's always going to be something that isn't perfect in your life? So Rabbi Nachman refers to this kind of obstacle, hardship, as a mania, as a something holding you back. And what he does is he creates a reference point for each of us to kind of look at our own obstacle, our own challenge, and see it in a new way. And he does this over and over and over again. I'm going to give you a few examples. He does it in different ways, and he has different methods for us to be able to deal with this challenge. For example, one of the things he says that if you could imagine that you are that there's a great king. Let's say you have a problem. And what we understand that this world is in a sense a reflection of a higher reality and a higher world. So if in this world you're presented with a challenge, instead of looking at it just as a simple challenge in this world, understand that this is a message that in your soul world, where you're rooted in, which is part of the Shekhinah. Since if you think of your life as your individual life as an extension of a bigger life, which is part of the divine presence, that means that within the divine presence there's something lacking, there's something deficient, and because you are part of that divine presence, you're an extension of it, you're feeling that deficiency. So you would say, oh, maybe I should get even sadder. It's not just my problem, it's the problem of the Shekhinah. Which, by the way, this is the way Rabbi Nachman asks us to daven. It's not unique. Even the Misnagdim, for example, the Nefesh HaChaim, Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin suggests that the real way to daven isn't really for you to... by the way, there's some things in the Nefesh HaChaim where he's echoing like the Baal Shem Tov, which is a great thing. The Nefesh HaChaim is seen as a kind of response to the Tanya and to Hasidus in general, but there's certain things that he actually is more articulate in bringing forth Hasidic concepts. So one of these concepts, it's already in the Kabbalah before Hasidus and Misnagdim existed, but the idea is very clearly articulated in the Nefesh HaChaim, as well as Likutei Moharan. I'm just bringing up the Nefesh HaChaim to show you that the essence of the idea is not particularly Rabbi Nachman's, but the full extent of where he goes with it is unique. So the Nefesh HaChaim says, which again, the Baal Shem Tov already said it, is that if something happens bad to you, so you, okay, what do you do as a religious person? You pray. You ask God, please help me. That's a concept in the Torah. It's all over the Talmud. In fact, there's a debate between Maimonides and Nachmanides. Is there a mitzvah to pray every day? Maimonides says there is. Nachmanides says no, there's only a mitzvah to pray in the time of need. That's the biblical mitzvah. Rabbinically, we pray every day, 2-3 times a day. But the real prayer, according to Nachmanides, is whenever something is not well, that's when you pray. Right? But comes the Nefesh HaChaim, and the Baal Shem Tov, and the Zohar, and Rabbi Nachman says, but the truth is that don't really pray for yourself. How could I not pray for myself? I'm in trouble. Go to the root of the trouble. Realize that God is sending you a message that there's a problem with the unification of the Holy One, blessed be He, in the Shekhinah. There's an emptiness in the Shekhinah in the world. So fix it at the source. Okay, so Rabbi Nachman then asks, okay, so now I know that not only do I have a problem, but my problem is just a manifestation of a cosmic problem. How does that make me feel? Does that make me any better? Rabbi Nachman says, yes. Because God is sending you a message to say, there's a problem. Imagine a king has a problem in his kingdom and he calls for you to help fix it. Even though on the one hand you could say, oi, now it's my problem, right? But the other way is saying, wow, what an honor. I've been selected to deal with something that the king wants. The king has chosen me to help out here. So that you see how Rabbi Nachman begins to turn it around. It is a problem. It's not my problem. It's God is sending me the message. He made it my problem, so I can recognize that it's really a problem in the world. You know, one of the most beautiful things I've noticed, and I've seen this in people, is that when they're ill, it opens their heart. Now, no, God forbid anybody should become ill to have to experience this. But I've talked to people who are going through a crisis of health, a challenge, fear of death, dealing with an illness that, not just a cold that comes and goes, but something that requires an operation or hospitalization and then potential reoccurrence. And one of the things that often happens is that the person becomes sensitized to the idea of having to help people. Really like on a much deeper level. They always knew they had to help people, but like as a life mission, that they didn't feel that same sense. Now, I always say to people who go through this, because I've talked to a lot of people, not a lot of people, but a number of people have kind of had this awakening, do me a favor. It's going to pass. This feeling that you have is going to pass. It might be in a month or a year. It's going to pass. You're going to go back to the way it was before.